Welcome to The Brain Factor, hosted by myself, Joy Riddle, and Laura Hawley. We're a part of Meridian Behavioral Healthcare, where we believe that wellness is within everyone's reach. This podcast is a conversation about what research-based protective factors look like in real life. Our hope is that you'll walk away with something that you can use in your own life and have had some fun with us along the way. So let's get started. Hi, welcome today. It's Joy and Laura. We're here again to talk to you today about stress, energy, and stress management. So, yeah, Laura, tell us what we're going to talk about today.
I have no experience with stress.
You have none. None. Neither do I. I am totally no stress individual.
No stress, right? Don't we wish? Wouldn't that be a nice world to live in? But yeah, so stress and stress management and energy. I like to call it energy because it really, I mean, it doesn't that describe how it feels too? Sometimes it's just like being electrocuted, right? but it falls under the protective factor of good coping skills, right? And there's so much under there. There's so much we could unpack, but stress and how to manage day-to-day stress, and then also like the unusual stress, sustained stress, all of that falls up under coping skills. So it's not the last time we're going to talk about it on this podcast. I think it's going to be a theme. But today, I really want to focus on is overwhelm. That I don't know about you, but that's where I struggle the most when it comes to stress. I think like when I have an isolated incident, I can kind of put that in the box it belongs in, and my coping skills seem to be better in that area. But when I'm getting kind of hit from all angles, I have a harder time with that. I can't sift through the noise as easily. So I don't know about what is that like for you?
I'm usually the one when a crisis is going on that I'm going to be like, okay, look, I got this, and I'm going to kind of take charge of that. So I do pretty good with a bunch of it. It's actually when it gets a little bit lower that it's a little bit more challenging for me.
Oh, see,
I just go into overdrive. And if I have a dozen deadlines and 10 other things that need to get done, then I'm like so super focused and can work in that manner. Maybe it's eustress.
Yeah. So it's kind of like being stoned to death with popcorn.
Okay.
Right? Like all the little stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like we can recognize like a big crisis, but overwhelm comes in a lot of forms, you know. Sometimes overwhelm can come from the big crisis that's just like so big that it overwhelms us, right? But a lot, I think more often than not, it comes in the 1,000 little things every day.
Yeah. I went through that a little bit this morning, if you remember.
Yes, you did.
I didn't prepare last night everything I needed, and then I woke up really early, fell back to sleep, so then I got up a little later than I needed to and was trying to get everything together. And yesterday when I got home, there was someone at my house, so they were parked and I couldn't get in, so I was way at the end of the driveway, and it just kept hitting me, all these little silly things till I wanted to cry when I got in my car,
And here we
so
are sitting here drinking coffee, everything's fine, right? But in the moment, oh my gosh, it feels so overwhelming, right? And sometimes I think we're in positions where it's not even just the in the moment little stuff. Sometimes it's like long-term little stuff. Yeah. But it's just there, right? So like maybe like we're struggling at work, and then also like our kids are driving us crazy, and there's uncertainty about the pandemic, and there's and I also like canceled my doctor's appointment again, and and then someone says, "What's for dinner?"
Right,
and you just lose it.
Yes, right? The poor people at home who get the real you.
Yes, who get the real you. Absolutely. I get decision fatigue sometimes.
Yes.
Where I just am not going to make any more decisions tonight.
Yeah.
I reach a point where I'm just like, you figure it out.
Well, I forget the number, but the number of decisions you make in a regular, say, 8-hour day, it's way up in the hundreds. I can't remember the exact, but I think it might be like 400 decisions that you make. So that's why too, like even with eating. You make all these good choices all day, and then at night you're like, are those Chips Ahoy's over there? Because you used all
you're done.
You're done.
You're
and
just
it's like,
done.
you can justify it
The
at
key is
that
to go
time.
to bed
There's
before
like,
that happens.
oh, well, it's just a couple of them, and, they this, and they would fit in my diet. And
sure, and I
where
feel
you
good
wouldn't do
all
that
day.
at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's real. Decision fatigue is something I'm still learning about and sort of unpacking and all of that. But I think stress is an interesting animal because there's some days, and this speaks to sort of, the greater topic that we're here talking about each time is, I think that there's such a difference in our coping skills from day to day, depending on what else is going on. There are times when the little stuff is so manageable and so fine, and we're just kind of like rocking and rolling through our life and knocking it all out and everything's good. And then there are other days where that same small stuff can just take you down.
Yes.
Absolutely take you down. And I think that's what's rough. What do you do in times like that when you've got overwhelmed? Like, what does your process look like?
My process probably isn't the prettiest because sometimes I do have a little bit of a meltdown. It's usually pretty personal, and it may be in the closet or behind a closed door.
Do you cry in the bathroom?
Yeah, I've got to fix the makeup after that, but I will have maybe a 30-second ugly kind of cry, and then I'm like, pull it together. What's going on? Okay, now let's get back to it. And at that point, I just give myself that space to deal with it, and then I just start to try to chip away at whatever is overwhelming me at that point.
Yeah, there's a meme I saw that reminded me of that I love, and it said, what are you gonna cry about it, or are you gonna boss up? And it said,
yes.
First of all, I'm gonna do both.
Both,
right?
Yes.
And I think that's a common myth about resilience, right? So like, it's messy. Resilience is messy. It doesn't look all like pretty and put together all the time. It's emotional. We have to feel, we have to let those things out. We have to cope with those things. But we can also cope with the situation at the same time. So one of the things that I have learned, so I told you I have the hardest time with overwhelm. I'm very good in the moment, but the sort of that sustained overwhelm, I get very burnt out when that happens.
Yeah.
And I've learned something that takes a little time, unfortunately, because that's often part of my overwhelm is that I don't have time to do everything. But yes. it's sometimes that whole in the moment, it doesn't always work, right? So I've learned a tool that I've been using to handle the overwhelm, and it I sit down and I start with a big list of everything that's stressing me out.
Yeah.
And I write it all down. And sometimes that's a short list, and sometimes I need another piece of paper. And sometimes it becomes that in and of itself becomes therapeutic, where I'm just like, and another thing, right? Yeah. So I write it all down, and then I split that list into two, and I decide what's a big deal and what's a little deal. And that's really hard because, little deals can sometimes cause us big stress, right? So I decide, like, is it going to matter in 5 years? That's always a good question, right? Yeah. It doesn't make the emotions go away, but it can sometimes help us manage it a little bit more. Is it changing the trajectory of my life? Is this thing, impacting a relationship that I care about, or somebody else's life that I care about? Like, what's the severity, right? So you determine kind of what's a big deal and what's a little deal. And then within those two lists, I determine which ones I can control and which ones I can't. Because I like to think that I can control everything. I try to control everything.
Yeah,
so.
you try.
I do.
How's that working for you?
Not great, right? So that's a big thing for me, is to determine like what I can control, what I can't. So that I'm left with these 4 categories. And I find that most people expend their energy and their time and their resources really ruminating about the little deals that they can't control.
Right.
And I spend a lot of time trying to figure out why. And I think it's because it's easy, right? It's like, I don't actually have to face my big problems.
Yeah, because you can tackle these little ones.
Or I can just complain.
Oh, yeah,
because I can't control it, right?
Yes,
So you can say, like, Laura, how's your day? And I could be like, oh my gosh. And I can unload all my little things that I can't control on you. And because I'm going to get from you what I think I need, which is, it's okay. Do you need anything? How you doing?
Yeah,
I hope your day gets better, right? So I'm going to get all of that, but I don't actually have to do anything.
Yeah.
Right. So when I do that exercise, I'm left with these 4 categories, and I have the one, like I call the scary box, right? And that's the big deal that I actually have control over. And then I gotta, that's the boss up part. Then you gotta handle that. You have to do something that's gonna manage those items. And then I find that when I do that, all those little things, they hurt less. They stress me out less. They're not, it sort of has this weird trickle down effect. So that's something that I've been doing lately that has worked really well.
Yeah. I guess I kind of use a list as well. So if I'm talking about work or tasks, things like that, and I do end up breaking them up into what I'm going to tackle this time and what I'm going to tackle that time. A good example for me is, okay, so I'll just say it. I'm an Italian. I'm from New York. I've got a big family. Holidays are a big deal, and I'll often have holidays at my house, and there'll be 30 plus people, and cooking all from scratch is pretty challenging in that. And I have to sit and I make a calendar. Actually, I'm going to make this on Monday and this on Tuesday, and then I got bake bread on Wednesday, and then the lasagna is going to be at this point. And that's the only way.
To your house for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, come on over.
It sounds amazing. But yeah, no, that's the whole process.
Yeah.
So what is but you enjoy that?
Yes. Do I enjoy what? Making the list, cooking the food, having the people? No, I enjoy it all.
Yeah, but you got to break it down. See, sometimes even things we enjoy.
I really enjoy it, and I love that, and I love making the things my family loves, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. How many people do you usually end up having? I don't know,
Around 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's 30 people in my whole family.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But yeah, breaking it down, that's a great tool. Breaking things down into smaller steps, I think is really important. Because when you look at it like I have to feed 30 people. Like, whoa, you want to talk about overwhelm. But I'm going to, do the potatoes, or I'm going to blanch the vegetables, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to prep the dry ingredients. Like when you break it down the whole week like that, before you know it, you have a meal for 30 people.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
I love that.
Easy to do.
I like that a lot. I find too that my stress shows up, and I the more people, again, this is total deviation from science-based. This is just anecdotal, but people I've talked to that are controlling like me tend to say that their stress is very physical. And I don't know if that's because we're not letting it out emotionally, and just trying to stay in control. But for me, it shows up very physical. Like I'll get hives, or I'll get like where I'm feeling the physical anxiety. My palms are sweating and my heart is racing. And it's not necessarily at the level of a panic attack or anything like that, but I just feel very physical stress symptoms. Yeah. And that's where I find something like box breathing or a deep breathing can be really, really helpful. Just kind of taking a minute to create pause in my life. Yeah. I think is helpful.
Yeah. Or like a body scan or a little meditation or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What does a body scan look like? Because not everybody might know that. I just learned that the other day. So
I know, right? Right. So a body scan is kind of when you take a moment and you sit there and you close your eyes and you try to center yourself, and then you just move through, starting, say, with your feet, and just think about your feet and how your feet feel. And, and as things try to pull you away from focusing on that, just acknowledge it. And, it's okay. Whatever you think you have, big feet or small feet, it doesn't matter. Just acknowledge that the thought happened and move on. And then you just kind of go, to your legs and your knees and your hips and up through your shoulders and your head. And you go through this process, and you take a minute while you're doing it. You don't go through it as quickly as I'm saying right now. Sure. Yeah, but then at the end of it, you're kind of like, oh, I'm relaxed. Yes. Because you pulled yourself out of it for a minute, or 5 minutes.
Well, and when Joy and I experienced that the other day. We were practicing sort of our keynote speaking, I guess, for lack of a better word, for an upcoming event. And we have a clinician coming and doing a guided meditation. And that was the first time I had gone through one like that. And so when she was finished, I was like, oh, we still have to have a whole meeting. I feel really relaxed and good. Like nothing's bothering me right now. Like, so I lost almost all my motivation situation, which because I wasn't stressed when we started, but gosh, that felt really good. And I've done similar stuff, like PMR. I don't know if you know, progressive muscle relaxation, where, you know, you clench the toes and let them go, clench the feet, let them go, and you work your way up your body. And so that has kind of that physical, but I never did it with that whole, like the imagining and the taking note and the grounding. Right. Gosh, that was really impactful. And I like it because, you know, a lot of times we don't have time for all of that. Right. So to me, it was like building off of box breathing, which is something that I've used a lot. And box breathing is really just, if you think about the 4 sides to a box, it's a 4 count. Breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding that for 4, and then repeating that 4 times. And that slows down, you know, oxygen flow, all of that. It slows it down. One of the things, you know, I was that person that, you know, particularly as a young adult, you know, looking back like 20 years or so, I was very resistant to all of this kind of stuff, right? Like I just would roll my eyes if somebody said deep breathing is going to help, or like progressive what? Like I, you know, this, like I want to solve my problem. I don't want to sit here and breathe, right?
Right.
I totally missed the point of it. And I think it's because nobody ever taught me the why. Like I was just sort of under the impression that there were people that thought that was going to make my problems go away, you know? And so I think it's really important to note that none of that makes the problems go away. That after you've done the guided meditation and you open your eyes, guess what's still there? Your problems and your
problems,
stress,
yes.
right? But it just
gives you a pause.
Yes, and that puts you back in the driver's seat. It puts you back in a position where you are then, because you're capable, you're capable of handling what life throws at you. It's just those times when maybe we slip and we fall down. And this gives us a chance to get back up, put us back in the driver's seat, where we then are able to handle what life's throwing at us. I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of value in that. I guess another thing that I'll do too is the color blue is soothing. It's soothing to me. It's a really pretty color. I like it. So I will just sit there, and I may be in a meeting and you might think I'm listening to you. Hope my boss isn't listening, but I know he will be.
She's just kidding.
I'm just kidding. Haha. Yeah. But I'll just imagine that color blue kind of coming down over and flowing and going down my shoulders and through my body and out through the bottom of my feet. And I'll imagine that over and over a couple of times, and it gives me that minute, you know, because sometimes you don't have time to stop and do a mindful meditation or something like that, or sit back and close your eyes. You're just in something, and it's like, okay, blue, come on. Come to me and chill me out before I open my mouth.
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. One of the things I've had trouble with, and see, I love this because there's so many different things that we can do in the moment. One of the things that I have trouble with, the way my brain works, is, you know, when people start saying like, well, picture a color, or picture a happy place, or picture, I'm like, that doesn't block out the thoughts for me. Yeah. So I have trouble focusing on something visual. For me, I live better with words, right? So being able to repeat in my head, like certain phrases, or
that's a great point.
Yeah, because that's just, you know, some people are visual people, some people are auditory people, and I need the words. So for like the longest time, I was trying like visualizations and failing at them. You know, you want to be more stressed, fail at your stress management technique, right?
Right. Yeah. There you go. That's a good way to get stressed.
Yeah, so it's important to know there's more than one. There's more than 5. There's more than 10, right?
Yeah. These and it's really whatever works. Yeah. It's what works for you. I mean, if it's sitting there and tapping your foot, right, then tap your foot.
Yes. And I think you said something critically important that I don't want to glaze over. And that was where you said it creates pause. Because that's the whole point, right? You got to pause. You need to pause. And you need to get back in the place you need to be in. Yeah.
And you know, I know stress is very different for me. Like work stress is one thing. I'm like, it's business. You really can't hurt me. But I can be this blubbering, like if it's personal, like something personally, like my family's going on, I don't deal with that. That overwhelm gets me. Yeah. That really gets me. But with work, it's like, okay, I have these, you know, I can run a spreadsheet and manage this. Right, you know? Right. But at home, it's, you know, it's personal feelings.
Or I can unplug from this. versus wherever you go, there you are, right? When it's your personal life or it's your family or it's the people that you love or the people that are going to be there when it's a different job or when it's a different task at the same job or whatever, right? And that's, I think that's a healthy thing because you understand sort of what box things belong in. But it also reminds us that the same tools we use for work stress are not necessarily the same tools that we need to use for that stress that really gets us in our heart and in our gut. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, for sure. I think that at home, and I talked about this in a different episode, how I take my feelings and I put them in a box on a shelf. And you can only do that so much at home, but it's great to do at work. It's a wonderful tool at work. Just take them and put them up there because it's business. It's not personal.
Sure. And for folks, I think that that's interesting because for folks that have trouble not carrying work home, maybe even just visualizing the box that you're going to leave it in could be helpful,
that's a good thought.
We
I never thought of that.
We'll use Joy's box for work from now on. But it's a way to imagine the boundary. Where's that boundary? Right?
And then I think overall stress can really weigh down on you. So that sustained stress.
Sure. Yeah.
That if it sticks around, it leads to, physical issues, mental health issues. It just, it's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point because when we have a crisis, an immediate crisis, something that stresses us out in the short term, even from the physical, right? Our brains release chemicals and we're sort of wired to combat that. And then it sticks around. Now it hits different after time. So knowing that, paying attention to our coping strategies if they're negative is really important. When we've identified that we're under stress, pay attention to what those coping strategies are. For some folks, it is, yelling and hollering and, maybe not treating the people we love super great. And for other people, it's substances, it's self-medicating, and how easy it is to sort of fall in those traps. And that's why it's important to adopt some of these tools to use before things get to that point, because you're human, so you're going to find a way to cope with it, so put some things intentionally in place that we know are going to beef up that protective factor of good coping skills.
Yeah. I always find it so interesting too, how people are affected differently by the same things, or they see things so differently. So for my husband and I, it's very interesting because we can say the same exact words and we never mean the same thing. So he's like, but you said, well, yeah, I said this, but I saw we were doing that. Well, no. And very early on in our relationship, we were sitting there one time, we had just put this area rug in the living room and we both loved it. We were like, oh, this is the perfect piece that we needed. So we got it down there, we sat on the couch and we looked at it and he's like, I really love the pyramids and the bubbles. And I went, what? It was an abstract. I'm like, what pyramid and bubbles? He's like, the carpet.
You're like, the triangles and circles?
Yes. I said, it's geometric. He's like, it's so whimsical. I'm like, no, it's geometric. It's triangles. It's circles. That's what I love about it. And I just looked at him at that time and said, we're going to have to be really, really careful.
I love that.
So, when we're stressed, we have to identify that about each other and how to deal with those things.
And knowing that what you respond to is not the same thing that he would respond to. Right.
Yep.
What you need for stress management is not the same that what he needs. And I think that that's really helpful to know that we're different. We're all different, right?
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as having too many tools in your toolbox.
Yeah. Definitely.
So it's not going to be the last time we talk about stress.
It will not, we promise.
But in the meantime, try lists, try visualization, try whatever it is that works in your life that will create pause. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.